All right, this evening we're going to be in Psalm 28. I don't know about y'all, but I've been enjoying going through this and reading the Psalms of David. So let me read Psalm 28. To thee, O Lord, I call, my rock. Do not be deaf to me, lest if you be silent to me, I will become like those who go down to the pit. Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry to you for help. When I lift up my hands toward your holy sanctuary, do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who work iniquity, who speak peace with their neighbors while evil is in their hearts. Requite them according to their work, according to the evil of their practices. Requite them according to the deeds of their hands. Repay them their recompense. For they do not regard the works of the Lord, nor the deeds of his hands. And he will tear them down and not build them up. Blessed be the Lord, because he has heard the voice of my supplication. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart exults. With my song I shall thank him. The Lord is their strength. He is a saving defense to his anointed. Save your people, and bless your inheritance. Be their shepherd also, and carry them forever. So with many of the Psalms, we're not really told the circumstances behind what prompted the writing. But David had a lot of moments that, some people are just gifted with the ability to write down a song. Some people are gifted with poetry. Some people are gifted with the ability to speak. Some people are just gifted with those things, and that just flows out of them. And I think this is the case with David. So with all of the different experiences he experienced, I'm sure that there was something that prompted his writing this down. But let's look through this. He addresses the prayer to the Lord. To you, O Lord, I call, my rock. Do not be deaf to me. And saying that God's his rock, he's saying, like, you're my foundation, you're my stronghold. David would go hide in the strongholds of the mountains, the rocks. He would find a hiding place. And in that, he's identifying the Lord to whom he's calling as his rock, as his foundation, as a stronghold. He's asking that God would hear him. And he says, lest if you become silent to me, I will become like those who go down to the pit. He's like, God, if you don't hear me and answer, I'm going to die. It's just a poetic way of saying that. He's just saying, Lord, I'm calling to you, and I need you. I really need you badly right now. Just listen to my voice and hear me. Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry to you for help. And again, just continuing on that, he's crying out to the Lord. He's saying, God, I just want you to hear me. Now notice in the next little couple verses here, he's talking about his hands, the hands of somebody else, the hands of the Lord. There's a comparison here between David and his hands, the hands of the wicked and the hands of the Lord. So he says, when I lift my hands toward your holy sanctuary, do not drag me away with the wicked. How would you drag a child away? You might drag a child away by their feet, but likely you'll drag them away by their hands. And it's with our hands that we do all of our work. It's with our feet that we walk around everywhere. But our hands, we touch what we're doing. Our hands are very much involved with who we are. We touch, we feel, we interact, we plan, we make movements. Our hands are very vital. And so David's saying, I'm going to lift my hands to your holy temple. He's saying, the strength is not in me. I'm just going to give it to the Lord and ask for God's help. God, help me. It's like a little kid saying, pick me up, pick me up. This is kind of what David is doing. And he's asking that God wouldn't drag him away with the wicked, with those who work iniquity. And he describes what these people who do wickedly and iniquity are like. They speak peace with their neighbor, but their heart is far from them. So this would be somebody who would be speaking out of both sides of their mouth. They backbite. They make you feel like they're your friend while all the same time they're stabbing you in the back. This is the kind of people that we don't need to be like. We don't need to be like this individual. We don't need to be one who speaks peace, but we're attempting evil. I think this is what we see in our country. Everybody in leadership is saying, oh, things are fine, it's going to be okay. But what they're planning is evil. They're planning evil for the people. And that's sad, but it's the case in the situation that we're in. They say, oh, things are good. Things are going to be good. We're trying to make things better. But what they're actually doing is making things worse by their policy and their actions. So they're speaking peace, they're planning evil. That's wickedness, that's iniquity. And David asks that God would requite them according to their works, that God would see what they're doing, and that he would repay them. He would pay them for what they're doing. That the answer that God would give them as they're planning their works, that God would answer in kind and thwart their plans and make that evil fall on them instead of David. So, requite them according to their work, according to the evil of their practice. Requite them according to the deeds of their hands. David lifted up his hands to the Lord. These people lifted up their hands to evil, to deeds of evil. Their hands were fully involved with manipulations and trying to make evil happen. Evil was in their heart, evil was in their practice, evil was in their hands, and David says, repay them for their recompense, because they do not regard the works of the Lord, nor the deeds of his hands. David lifted up his hands to the Lord. The evil one put his hands to evil work. They were ignoring the works of God's hands. We don't often think about the fact that God formed man with his hands, that God's handiwork is all over creation. God is deeply involved with what's going on in his church and what's going on with people who love him. The Lord's hands are all over that. We even say that. You could see God's hand on that person. Well, that's a reflection of the fact that God's hand is active. So we have a choice. And this is just pulling it away from David. We can be wicked with our hands, or we can be righteous with our hands. We can be doing the right things with our hands, with our actions. And I mean, that even just brings it in a little bit more. All of us have computers at our touch, and we're scrolling this and looking at that. Our hands are deeply involved with everywhere our mind is going and everywhere our eyes are going. So we have to think about, where are our hands leading us? Are we regarding the works of God's hands? Are we remembering what the Lord wants done? David says, repay them, because they don't regard your works nor the deeds of your hands. He will tear them down and not build them up. How are you going to tear something down? With your hands. Well, how are you going to build something up? With your hands. I seen some men out this morning. They were building a house. A lot of houses going up around here. A lot of construction. That's a lot of physical labor. A lot of nails and screws and boards put together by the hands of craftsmen and workmen. They're using their hands to put it together. Well, anytime I've ever torn something down, your hands get involved. Whether you're operating equipment or you're tearing it down by your physical hands yourself, your hands are involved with that. So what we do with our hands matter. Our hands matter. What our hands are involved with are important. Are we going to be like David and lift them up to the Lord? Are we going to be like the wicked, turn them to evil? Are we going to honor the Lord with that? I'm just that's what I'm pulling out of this. But David is saying, look, I don't even want to be like these evil people. I don't want to be dragged away with the wicked who are like this. In verse 6, David says, blessed be the Lord, because he heard the voice of my supplication. He starts the prayer, hear me, Lord, hear me again. And he's asking for God to hear him. And here he says, blessed be the Lord. He's heard the voice of my supplication. It's a short prayer. It's not long. We only got 9 verses in this psalm. And within a few verses, he understands God hears his voice. He heard his prayer. Blessed be the Lord. And in response, David says this, the Lord is my shield and my strength. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart exults, and with my song I shall thank him. So the Lord heard David's prayer, and David recognized that God was his shield, his strength, and where his heart was trusting, therefore he was helped. David's response is he's exulting in the Lord and thanking God with song. We have many examples of David's songs in these psalms. This is one of them. He's thanking God for this moment, this instance. Maybe it's many of them as he's writing this down, and God heard him and helped him. And then he says this, the Lord is their strength. He is a saving defense to his anointed. He brings it personally. This is what the Lord did for me. And he turns around and says, anybody who trusts in the Lord, The Lord is their defense. He is a saving defense for his anointed, the ones that he's touched and chosen and the ones his hand is on, the one that the Lord's hand is on. He is their strength. He is their saving defense. And then he turns at large to the people of Israel and says, save, O Lord, your people. Save your people, Lord, and bless your inheritance. He brings it personally and then applies it to the nation as a whole. Israel was the people of the Lord. They were his inheritance. He was their shepherd. He still is. So David asks that the Lord would be their shepherd also and carry them forever. God's not finished with Israel. But we can also look at this and say, if the Lord has anointed us with his Spirit, if the Lord has saved us, we likewise are his people. And he will protect and deliver when we put our trust in him. Not to say that we won't have bad days or go through problems. Those kind of things happen. But this is something that David is recognizing, that when we have enemies, when we have difficulty, the Lord is our strength. I think about these two individuals fell in the river. Were they calling out to the Lord for help in the middle of that? Possibly so. I'd like to think so. Well, who knows that the Lord wasn't there with them in that? We don't know that. When people are going through difficult times and they call out to the Lord, they find the Lord is their strength. They find that the Lord is the one who delivers them. They find that the Lord is right there with them in the middle of what they're going through. David, again, you look at all of the Psalms, he went through a lot of difficulty. His life was not free from difficult moments, but he recognized in those difficult moments, as he trusted the Lord, that the Lord was his strength and he received the help he needed. I just think that applies to us too, and we can find help when we need it in God. In fact, that's what the book of Hebrews says. We can come before the Lord with boldness to find help in our time of need. So David did that, and why we can do that too. So.